Hey everybody, welcome to 10 Backward. I'm Ron.
And I'm James.
And we want to welcome you back to yet another episode of your favorite podcast series where people talk about episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation in reverse order. That's why we talk about like what happens at the end of the episode and we go back to the beginning of the episode. Is that how it works?
No, we don't. We actually talk in order from the beginning and the teaser all the way to Act 5. We're just watching this backwards because we don't want to watch Encounter at Farpoint anytime soon.
No. It's I was confused by the concept at first, but you think like 10 episodes in I'd have it down. But no, James is right. We talk about Star Trek The Next Generation starting in season 7. We started everything off with All Good Things, and we are now all the way up to one of my favorite episodes, Thine Own Self.
I got to, you were talking this one up quite a bit before we went into watching this, and I've got to agree with you. This is a solid. To say it's a solid Data episode is accurate, and after watching some of the stuff we've seen before, saying solid Data episode just doesn't seem like it should come out of my mouth.
Right, it's an odd phrasing, but no, like this is after watching Masks, which is just like it's like having your fingernails pulled out. This episode is a great episode because it lets Brent Spiner just be Data. He's got it figured out now. This is just a perfect Data episode.
It really is, and the B story, could take it or leave it. A story, well done. Honestly, well done.
Not a fan of the B story in this episode. It's Troi centric, which is okay. But this is the episode that kind of sets up a little bit. I don't know why we're waiting to this point in the series to do more character development with Troi, but here we are. So anyway, I thought I had something there.
This is one of your favorite episodes for Data. You go right ahead and you work on that teaser, young man.
Okay, well, I guess we'll get things started then. Dr. Crusher, actually the episode opens up. We're on the bridge of the Enterprise, and Dr. Crusher is up there taking the night shift, which I guess you're in space. It's always night somewhere, maybe. I don't know how that works.
Do they run on Greenwich Mean Time?
I don't know. I'm sure they've got one of those big weird clock things that lets them know what time it is in London, like on ships in the 18th century. It's next to the toilet on the bridge. You never see it, but you just assume it's there. But Dr. Crusher is up there working the night shift. And I guess that's something that Data normally does, but since he's off doing something, she's doing it. And so Troi arrives back on the ship. She comes up to the bridge, and she was just at like a class reunion at some starbase. And the conversation kind of shifts where Crusher's like, hey, like, tell me about all your friends and stuff that you got to see there. And she's like, yeah, it's like, it's really weird because everybody, their careers have gone in different directions. And it's just, I kind of feel like I'm spinning my wheels. And Crusher's like, oh, well, that's why I went ahead and decided to apply to be a commander. Because it's kind of one of those things, just personal fulfillment, because you don't have to be a commander to be like the chief medical officer on a Starfleet vessel, but she just took it as like a personal challenge. So again, Data's normally in charge of kind of the night shift, and he's on this away mission, and so we get the backstory now for like the main. See, we're treated to the B story at the top for some reason, and then it goes to A story. But we get all of our background for the A story, where Data's on this away mission. There's some kind of probe that crashed onto this like pre-industrial planet. And so he's having to collect all the bits of the probe up, and then he's supposed to bring it back. But because Data is like super android, he I guess he's not susceptible to the radiation or whatever that this stuff gives off. So he can very safely pick these things up, or pick all the stuff up, and then get back to the Enterprise. So Crusher keeps sending out these like, hey, like, here's the status of where we're at, and we're gonna pick you up in X amount of hours, Data. So give me a call back. Even though, why leave a message? Nobody listens to voicemail, man.
Oh, no.
Just send him a text.
Yeah, I might say all the time, like my mother will leave voicemail. I'm like, I'm not gonna listen to that voicemail. I'm just gonna call her back.
Yeah, I saw you called. That's it. Just all you got to do is the second, like, everybody should just change their outgoing voicemail message to be like, I got it. Just hang up.
Yeah.
Okay. I recognize you called me. Hang up the damn phone. So Crusher keeps leaving him these messages saying, hey, we're going to come pick you up in X amount of hours. But she's not getting a response from Data. And she's kind of like, oh, he's probably, there's radiation in the atmosphere, or there's, it's I don't know, it's Android Christmas or something. So he's busy. He's not getting the thing. And so they're like, all right, well, if you're not disturbed with it, I'm not going to worry about it. So they wait a couple days, and basically the message is like, hey, it's going to be a couple days. We're going to come and pick you up. And we've got to go. And of course, because we got to run around because we're like, the flagship of the Federation. We got to go meet this other ship because there's like some medical supplies, and we got to take them to this colony. And then it cuts to B story. Cuts to the reason why you turned on the TV this week. And there's some village that you like, kind of like, I don't know, it just looks like a generic Star Trek village.
It's like they're trying to be Renaissance, but not Renaissance.
Yeah, their clothing kind of does. It looks very Renaissance. So a couple of these people that live on this planet, there's like a middle-aged guy, his name's Garvin, and his young daughter, Gia, played by Billy Bob Thornton's ex-wife, are sitting there talking. Not really, that's Gia. That's
I got it. Yeah,
Angelina Jolie.
Okay.
You never know. You never know. It might be, that's too deep a cut. I don't know. But so anyway, they're sitting there talking, and he's just kind of whatever, filler. And all of a sudden, they kind of look up at like this staircase, and there's Data standing there, and like his hair's all messed up, and like his uniform's ripped, and there's like a big burn mark on his chest where his communicator normally is, and he's got this like briefcase, this big metal box, and they're like, hello, are you okay? And he opens up his mouth, and it's just like this weird, like, it's like he's dialing into AOL. like in the box is a stack of CDs good for 503 free hours.
Oh, those were
of AOL
great.
This month. Oh my gosh, they are amazing. You can put a cup on it, and it totally stops your table from getting a ring on it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So they see him, and they're kind of like, whoa, like, who's this dude? And he's like up there making like,
pretty much. And he's just, he looks like he's been through a lot. Like I mean, his like part of his hair's all messed up. He's got some like dirt on his part of his face, and he just has the most blank. I mean, for Data,
he looks slightly deranged.
Yeah, a little deranged, and like a odd expression on his face, even for Data. I was like, wait, when I saw the opening, I was like, wait, is everyone on vacation? Why is Crusher in charge? Like, what is that all about?
I think Gates McFadden was like, I'm supposed to be in X amount of more episodes this season, so you're gonna have to give me something to do.
Yeah, that just blew my mind. Anyway, we're gonna go right into Act 1. Garvin is standing there with his daughter, and he says, you need to go home. I'm going to talk to this guy. Walks up to Data, and when he first starts talking to Data, Data is only able to repeat whatever Garvin is saying to him. And it's kind of like trying to talk to somebody who's never talked before, kind of thing. Like,
yeah, he's repeating.
He's a dictaphone for the first part of it.
Yeah.
And you can tell kind of like through his actions that the mechanisms in his brain are starting to come back to life, and Data starts to recover to where he can only he's got pretty much robot amnesia. He has like no idea who he is. His memory has been wiped. He woke up in the mountains, and he's like, that's far away. That's That's over 200 whatever unit of measurement we have here.
Yeah, it's 200 Salems away. Yeah.
So Garvin sees that his daughter didn't really leave. She's just hiding behind this like stack of wood or some kind of prop, and he's like, "No, you need to leave." And she's like, "Well, look, she's pretty much like not afraid of Data. It's you can tell because she's like sticking around. She's like, I really want to know more about who this guy is." And so then Garvin notices that Data is carrying around a nuclear football, and he's like, What is that? And Data's like, I don't know. It's just a box and it says radioactive. Wait, why do I know what radioactive means? Why do I know that's what it says? And Garvin's like, well, we don't understand what it means. And it's like, maybe that could be your name. Is your name Radioactive? And he's like, why not? Just call me Radioactive.
Yeah, is your name Mr. Radioactive? And he's like, I think that's what I'm going to call my new punk band.
So Garvin opens the box and he finds like this little like nugget, like silver nugget, and he's holding it and he's examining it, and it says right. So we all know that it's radioactive and harmful, but he doesn't know that.
Right.
And
so, but he's like touching it with his bare hands and like really examining it. He does everything but like that old timery thing where they bite it to see the coin to see if it's real.
He's making a real meal out of this tinfoil, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. So, better see the value of that, young man.
Yeah, so that's where we get the what in this part of the show. We like you're really like, what the hell happened? Why Data being so advanced, what did he have to go through to have his mind just totally erased like that?
Yeah, it must have been a hell of a crash or whatever happened to him. Because I don't think they really explain like what occurred, but they just kind of leave it up to your imagination that some type of accident befell Data and it like reset him temporarily or something. So
that damn gonorrhea, like we tell him.
Yeah, it's cyber gonorrhea, the noisy killer.
That's why if you're an android and you start making the sound of a modem when you open your mouth, you might have android gonorrhea.
Yeah, he's got the clapper. I really drew the short straw this week because all my stuff is about the B story. but back on the Enterprise, Act 2, it's like back on the Enterprise. Troi is basically like talking to Riker, and she's like, hey, I want to take the bridge officer's test. And Riker's like, well, why do you want to do that? You don't really have to have that kind of qualification to be the counselor on, a ship. And she's like, I don't know. I've been thinking about it for a couple of years. And she went to her class reunion, and she's like, so many people have kind of done so much with their careers. And then she kind of does, for us, foreshadowing, for her, a callback. Because there was a situation where the Enterprise got stuck in this quantum filament, I think in like season 5 and 6 or 5. She says I think she says like 2 years ago or something. Yeah. But I'm thinking it's sooner than later for us. But she's like, but she had to kind of like take control of the bridge while she did that. And she's like, it really pumped me up, and it made me remember kind of why I joined Starfleet to like help people and do things. And it was like, it just kind of awoke something in me, but I've never just made that next step. And going to the class reunion did it. So Riker's like, oh, well, you got my full support. But I got to warn you, I'm going to be the one that's testing you. And I can't, because of our personal relationship and things like that, I can't really like, go easy on you. I'm going to have to like give you the same level of due diligence I give everybody. And she's like, hey, I don't expect anything less.
Yeah.
And the scene ends, and it's very graciously, Riker at no point plays the trombone.
I was going to say, isn't this where he's in his top kimono and like playing the trombone?
It's no additional trombone.
Oh god, that scamp is at it again.
I know. So she's like, hey, like we're gonna put you through the test and things like that, and it'll take place on the holodeck tomorrow morning. Just be there and we'll get it going. All right. So Garvin and his daughter have basically said, hey, we're going to take care of Data because he's got this amnesia, doesn't know his name. And they're like, hey, like, what do you want to call yourself? And, because everybody needs a name. And they bring up the whole thing where it's like, well, radioactive is written on your case. Maybe that's your name. And Gia is like, why don't we call you Jaden? I like that name. And Data's like, oh, that's acceptable. That's okay. So there is a lady in this town who is like a scientist doctor, but has kind of like a 19th century understanding of medicine and things like that. So she says, hey, I'll go ahead and I'll take a look at you. And she, is kind of feeling him all over and things like that. And like, hey, stick your tongue out and all that. And she's like, your skin is very strange and your eyes are very strange. And, you don't look like one of us. And he's like, well, why would that be? And she just very like matter-of-factly says, oh, because you're an Iceman. And he goes, an Iceman? And she's like, oh yeah, because up in the mountains outside of the village, there's all these people that live up there that they're humanoid. I don't think she even says humanoid, but they're like us, but they're different. And because your skin is that color because of the harsh weather, and your eyes are that color because Data kind of has like a like white skin with like little gold flecks on it, and he's got like, I don't even know what color his eyes are because I'm profoundly colorblind. They're like green or like neon yellow or something.
Yeah, and the anyway, black of his pupils are like, whoa.
Yeah, they're largish. But he, but basically she's like, oh, well, that explains your look. So that's why it is.
We can solve this with leeches.
Yeah, it's like, do I really need all these leeches? Well, of course you do, because the leeches suck out the poison that witches put in there. So, Iceman. So they're like, okay, well, you're gonna need some money if you want to live and stuff like that. So, Gia, go get him some of my old clothes. Why is it that these people? It doesn't matter what show it is, they never give people new clothes. They're like, oh, give him some of my old clothes. And the old clothes just look like something that just came off the rack at the exact same time of whatever the main character is wearing.
Yeah, anyway. Exactly. It's this guy's a bona fide beef eater. Let's get him one of those pants and the hat.
Right. So they're like, they go ahead and they dress him up. So he kind of fits in with everybody else. And they take him into town to meet the village blacksmith, who's Skoran. And Skoran is like, well, you got anything to trade? It's that guy. You've seen him in a million things. He might as well just be like a taxi driver in this thing,
favorite
where he's just like,
of the episode. This guy.
Yeah, he's so great because you see this guy in everything. Whatever the actor's name is, but it's like
Michael Haggerty.
I think this
Michael G. Haggerty.
Sure. Yeah, crazy. I think this is the only episode of Next Gen we really see him in, but it's you couldn't use him more than once because he sticks out like a sore thumb in anything that he's in. But I've seen him in a lot of comedic roles, but this he just plays like just a straight up dickhead, and he's like, well, you got anything to trade? Let's see what's in your box. And he's like pawing through the box, and he's like looking at the metal and stuff like that. And he's like whacks it with a hammer a couple times, and he's like, it's very malleable. Maybe I could make some jewelry out of this. And he's like, you want a tray? And then he like comes up with like he's some dollar amount or something like that. And Data's like, well, I want to keep like some of these because it might be like important to figuring out who I really am. That like I can like maybe this is a secret to who I am as a person, so I need to keep some of these. And he's like, all right, that's fine. So I guess Skoran's like assistant is over there like, I sing whenever I sing whenever I sing. He's like banging on the anvil, and like one of the legs on the anvil breaks and the whole thing falls over on the guy's leg, and he's like, my leg. And Data just goes over because he's super strong, and he just picks up the anvil, and everybody just looks at him like oh god, like this thing just shocked everybody. And Data looks over at Garvin, and he's like, did I do something wrong? And they're like, and he says something, and it's so great that it's like, not wrong, just
Right.
unexpected. And so Data puts the thing down, and the guy that the shit fell on his leg even stops screaming because he's so like taken back by him picking this up. And then when Data puts it down and the guys like pick him up to help him like off, you know, out of the scene basically, then he starts screaming. He's like, well, had my break. Oh, my leg. So later that night at dinner, the little scientist lady is like, oh, well, your super strength is something that you share with all Icemen from up in the mountains, because they all have to have that super strength because everybody knows that there's wild beasts that roam up there. And Data's like, well, you said nobody's actually ever been up there, so how do you know that there's wild beasts up there? And she's like, well, but of course there have to be wild beasts up in the mountains. And he's kind of like, I think you're just talking out of your ass. But anyway, thanks. So Garvin is like, you know, I'm not feeling so great. I think I'm gonna go to bed. And the scientist lady goes over and is like, you know, feels his forehead and is like, oh, well, you know, you need like a brisk walk and like some night air. And he's like, yeah, that sounds all right. So he takes off to go on a walk. And Gia's like, Data, you didn't eat anything. And Data's like, you know, well, I'm not really hungry, you know, but you know, it's your food, I'm sure, is fine. I don't feel hunger. And so Gia is like, oh, well, you know, Dad's cooking isn't that great. You know, Mom passed away and things just haven't really been the same around here. I'm so glad I have an Iceman for a friend now. And but she I can't even remember what happens. It's like it's basically like they start kind of talking about like an afterlife or something, like their religious beliefs or something. And it's like, you know, like, do you think it's like my dad said that my mom went to like this place where it's like, you know, all your old pets are there, and you know, it's like every day is like double scoop ice cream Tuesday, and he's like, you know, do you think like a place like that exists? And Data, you know, is just kind of like, you know, yeah, I'm pretty sure that, you know, something like that. Oh, and there's like a reverse, or there's like a weird like reflection of Data like looking out at the stars like wistfully, and he's like, you know, I'm certain that a place like that does exist. And then I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they both sing Somewhere Out There. Yeah,
they do. Or they sing oh god, you know, I was gonna have some kind of Music Man reference, but now I can't remember the name of the song. Good Night, My Someone. Good Night, My Someone. They both sing Good Night, My Someone. Yeah, I you know what I love about that, the section of the show, is especially in most shows, even now, you could be anywhere. And they could be alien as aliens are, and there's always the like 3 or 4 people who are from Brooklyn.
Yes.
My leg, get off my leg. And then of course Soren being like, you know, being that kind of same character. I just love that they always include Brooklyn people in every show.
Well, it's did we watch The Chase yet? Maybe that's coming up, where they're all trying to find okay. Where they're all trying to figure out like the origin of like all these different species. So since there's a common ancestor for like DNA for like all these humanoid species, maybe the Brooklyn accent is just built into the DNA of those weird aliens, where they're like, hey, you know, you guys, you know, you went all over the galaxy to figure out, you know, that we were your progenitors. But I really want to know, how many of you guys are cops and how many of you guys are firefighters?
Maybe.
Because I want to know. Because you don't understand. Because, you know, that was our whole thing. We were trying to create an entire universe of cops and firefighters.
I guess. I don't know, man, but that would
I don't know why they're from Boston all of a sudden.
Boston,
but, you know, it just seems
you know, same kind of thing. It's a very brash, in your face type character, and they're always in each episode. They're always from like New England.
Yes. Well, it's for the same reason. It's kind of like you got to have a point of interest for, or a point of understanding for us, because there's like there's a frame of reference for us as viewers, because there's like I think there's like a Futurama joke where there's some alien comedian, and it's something like it's guys from SETI Alpha 5 be like, and guys from SETI Alpha 6 be like, and Fry's like, that's so true. So if you didn't have some meathead guy from Long Island,
hold on,
know.
saying it wrong. It's Strong Island. Get it right.
Yeah. No Paradise City. Oh!
All right.
Stay out my yard, meat man.
So while that's all going on that planet that Data's on, we in Act 3 we start right in engineering, and Worf is there, LaForge, some of the senior officers, and Troy's there, and she's like talking to both Geordi and Worf, and like she's barking orders. And they're like, oh no, these antimatter pods are starting to break down. And Troy's like trying to make these decisions, and then it just stops, and they go away, and this is all a simulation. And Troi is not passing the test, and Riker gets in her face about it hard. He's like, what the F are you doing? You're gonna fail this thing. You the most important part of this thing is you're just failing this test, and you got to make sure you know what's involved, and I don't know if you're really willing to do all this stuff. And she's like, back off, man. Just give me another chance. We'll get this right. He's really just running her down for this. And so that's pretty much that part of story B, because right after that we go right back onto the planet Data's on. I think it's Barkon 4. So Data goes with Gia to the school with that doctor lady that was at the house earlier that was talking to
Sissy Cameron.
Yes,
Sissy Cameron's in this. I didn't even realize it. Doctor lady.
But so she's the teacher, she's the doctor of the town, and she's starting to teach she's teaching the children about the elements, the sky, fire, rock, and water. And she's talking about how wood is combustible because there's fire on the inside of it, and when it's exposed to flame, the flame within comes to life. And Data's like, okay, that's not real, because wood is wood, fire is fire. There's no fire inside wood that magically comes out when it's near other fire. It's chemicals. It's all chemicals. And the school marm is like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Your amnesia makes you unreasonable, and you're an Iceman after all. And so after
but before you spin past
that, yeah, go ahead.
I've been racking my brain trying to remember what that, because it's part of alchemy that that wood contains fire, and the fire, it contains sky because of the smoke coming out.
Yeah, that's right. So
what is that called?
Transmutation.
That's some. Thank you. I've been racking my brain since I watched this episode.
Yeah, she does mention that when you put the fire out, air is released as smoke, so it's all kind of connected. It's bullshit, of course, because we all know that wood is separate, fire is separate. Smoke is kind of similar, because that's the chemical reaction of the fire with the wood, but that's technically still incorrect.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't say this in a public square in the 1500s.
No.
But now, behind the anonymity of the internet, I feel very comfortable saying that is not sound scientific information.
Well, I mean, hold on. It is 2018. Things have been going on within the world, and I think getting back into transmutation is a science that we could all get behind.
I think that was one of Betsy DeVos's first things she was going to do.
I think so too.
when she was placed in that position.
Oh, transmutation is back.
More alchemy in schools.
More alchemy, less chemistry. More alchemy, less chemistry. So the school marm, she's like, you're wrong. You're an Iceman. We don't have to listen to you. And she adjourns class. So Gia and Data are hanging out, and Gia's like, she's like, hey, do you think that teacher lady's right? And he's like, well, I'm really not convinced that fire. I'm really convinced that fire. I'm pretty sure fire's not an element, just because of how it behaves and knowing how everything like that works.
I mean, I saw a Honda element that caught fire.
Oh yeah, and
yeah,
that was a transmutation of a very different kind.
Yeah.
So, and as they're just having this conversation, they hear Skoran and Gia's father, Garvin, arguing over some money because of when they sold that little silver radioactive nugget. Skoran said one price, and now he's like trying to cheapen the deal, and he's blaming Garvin for he's being sick, so his memory's bad. And so then, as they're arguing, Garvin just almost like, doesn't he pass out?
Yeah, like he gets really worked up or something.
Yeah, and so they have to take him home, and the doctor lady comes back and examines him, and she's like, I don't know how to fix him. He's having hair loss. He has these lesions all over his body. Here, herbs will solve the problem.
Yes. If the Resident Evil games taught me anything, it's green herbs are what your body needs.
And if anyone out there is playing Sea of Thieves right now, whole bananas with the skin, that'll totally solve any kind of cuts and bullet wounds.
That's how I get rid of my monkey reticulitis. So
there you go. And so she pretty much is like, here, give him these herbs, and they might help him recover. Who knows? And Data's like, this isn't going to work. So he starts to throw together his own investigation as to what's causing the illness. And so they go to the market, Gia and Data, they go to the market to get some equipment to start, trying to decipher what's happening. And while they're at the market, they're confronted by the blacksmith and some others. And they're like, you're the one bringing this sickness to our village. How dare you? The sickness is spreading, and you need to leave. And so they pretty much beat a hasty retreat out of there because they don't want to. It's kind of turned into a Frankenstein's monster situation.
Right, and they're like, your daughter's a witch, and we'll have her. And it's like, no, that's a different show.
That truly is a different show.
That's a different movie, I think. So.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's kind of like this is where the episode kind of kicks into high gear, and they're gonna get to the bottom of this little mystery. But top of Act 4, Data has built this like super magnifying kind of glass, and he's also built like this very rudimentary Geiger counter. So what he's doing is he's looking at, because now Gia is not feeling good. So he has skin cells from Garvin and Gia, because they were the first like 2 people to get sick, I guess. And because they were the first people to be exposed to the weird metal. And so he's like, your cells, they have this exact same sort of, I guess, differences. Like, I don't know. Does he really even say? But he's like, oh yeah, they're bad. These cells,
he's looking under
they're real bad. These cells.
Yeah, he's looking under the microscope that he built, and he's like, you can tell that the cells are starting to break down. And look, Gia got her. She had her pendant, her radioactive nugget on later.
Oh, that's right.
And so he's like, oh well, look, her skin, her cells are not as bad, but. That's where he's trying to be like, okay, he touched he's kind of putting the 2 and 2 together, like, oh, he touched it first, and so his cells are much more degraded.
Right. It's they finally make the connection because she's wearing a necklace. That's right. I completely forgot about that. That Skoran made a pendant for her out of that radioactive metal, and she's been wearing it the whole time. So Data gets the pendant back from her. And he's kind of like, okay, well, this is why the blacksmith is sick, because he's the one that worked all this metal to make the jewelry. So we need to go out and we need to collect up all of this stuff. So back on the Enterprise, Troi she's like in her quarters, and there's like a really cool kind of, I'm sure, a very cool prop where you see like sort of like the Enterprise, and it's maybe like she's supposed to be like studying this like on a computer screen that's like transparent, because you see like this mock-up of the Enterprise, and she's like tracing stuff around like about all these different systems and things like that, because I guess the test that she's failing is the same every time, but you just got to figure out what to do. So she's like poring over all these technical specifications. And Riker comes in, again, thankfully not playing trombone. And he tells her that you failed this bridge thing 3 times, so I'm not going to allow you to take it again. And she's like, you're not my supervisor. And she's like, that's my purse. I don't know you.
And Riker's like, can I put my leg up on something?
Right.
I really want to put my leg on something.
So she's like, I should be able to take this as many times as I need in order to pass it. And she's like, there's more to being a bridge officer than just studying technical manuals. And he's like, yes, exactly that. I can't tell you, but you're so close. And Riker's like, well, I'm not going to let you take this again. I'm sorry. So you don't have the qualities expected to be a bridge officer. And he says that, like, no matter how much I like you, my first duty is to the ship, as it should be yours. And that's his last words before walking out. And Troi is kind of like, first duty is to the ship, eh? And so she rushes down to the holodeck. So she gets down to the holodeck, and she's like, all right, let's start the simulation again. So she finds herself in engineering, and there's the antimatter leak or whatever is going on. Or the antimatter is about to leak out of whatever is, like, it's holding it in check or whatever. So she turns to Geordi, simulated Geordi, and she's like, hey, can you repair? We've been trying to repair this thing from the outside, and every time that there's a suggestion of how to fix it, that system's offline, or that's not going to work, or we don't have enough time, or whatever. So she's like, can you repair the damaged parts if you crawl inside them? If you go inside this thing, can you fix it? And the Worf hologram kind of like, whoa, like looks over and says, like, if you do that, he won't survive the radiation that's, that he's going to encounter inside this chamber. And Troy's like, I know, but those are my orders. And so Geordi, simulated Geordi is like, okay, and walks off, basically to die. And that's what it was.
Yeah.
That was the thing that she had to do. So Riker, who has just been watching, because I guess you can somehow sneak onto the holodeck. Riker has been watching this, and he kind of like, freeze program. And he's like, hey, congratulations, you passed the test. And she's like, she's kind of like, okay, well, I understand the point of the test, that you should be able to order somebody to their death. And Riker's like, yes, that's exactly it, because you have to think about the kind of the needs of the many versus the needs of the few or the one. There's a lot of like, because I think even earlier she makes a comment about the Kobayashi Maru, where it's like an unwinnable test.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like that, because you saved everybody in the Enterprise, but you lost like a close personal friend to do that. So it's an unwinnable sort of thing. But she's like, okay, well, I did it. And so basically he like gives her a field commission right then and there and promotes her to commander.
That really makes me question her ability as being a bridge officer in future movies. Right. Mm-hmm. Just because she couldn't I don't know. I was just like, come on, really? This isn't that hard of a thing. You have to think like the whole, and especially as an empath, you think she'd be like, oh, I get it now.
Well, especially since this is fake. This is a fake set of circumstances.
Yeah.
Like you could send Worf and you could tell holodeck Worf and Geordi to make out and then go and fix it. And it wouldn't matter. They're fake. So there's no real stakes. There's an episode that we'll see quite a while from now where Wesley goes to Starfleet Academy, and he takes an exam, and they're like, hey, wait in this room. And he's waiting in the room, and there's like an explosion outside, and he goes out, and there's like two people like trapped in this little room, and one is just like kind of cowering and is just like, I can't leave, I'm so scared. And then there's another person who's like trapped under a thing,
Right.
like a pipe falls over on him, and he goes and he saves the person with the pipe and pulls the guy out. And then like somebody shows up and is like, hey, like, you passed whatever this thing was. And he's like, what? And like one of the other guys like walks out and he's like knocking all the like fake foam or whatever like the stuff was spraying on him. He just like shoves it off and he like slaps him on the shoulder like hey, how's it going, kid? And that was kind of real, because that would be like, you wouldn't expect it. But this other thing, I think I would have probably figured out you had to send somebody to their death a little quicker. But remember, this is the 7th season.
I know. It's just, I just am like, come on, you're an empath. You should figure this out pretty quick.
Yeah, I would think so too. But back on the planet, basically, Data gets some of the metal, and he's like showing off his little Geiger counter, and he shows that it's radioactive, because it's like there's like particles or something that are hitting this piece of paper and making a pattern. And he discovers that, and basically it's like, okay, this confirms that the metal is like the cause of this sickness. And so but I guess there's like some real science in this, because you can actually replicate this. I remember at the time, like on Usenet, dating myself,
wow,
people were talking about that you could replicate this experiment that Data did. And so
with the burning, basically the wood frame and all that.
Yeah, like you could actually replicate this, because this is how early people that were studying radiation and that's exactly how they were like, oh wait, look at this it excites the particles on this thing if you bring an energy source next to it. So but anyway, but you can block the radiation with the box that he brought into the village. So he's like, okay, we got to collect up all the fragments until we can try to find a cure, because we don't want to expose anybody else. Well, Scorin and his goon squad show up, and they're like, we, you caused all this, and we're gonna, your daughter's a witch and we'll have her.
Pretty much. Oh my god.
And so he hits him with a stick or something, and it like tears a big chunk of Data's skin off and exposes all the little circuits and flashy lights and stuff underneath, which really seems like Noonien Soong just like, like he could not climax unless something had LEDs all over it. So so it's got all this stuff, and the villagers see that and they become scared, and they're like, what are you? And Data's like, I don't know. And so the villagers are scared and they run away, and Data is kind of like really confused about like, I thought maybe I was an Iceman, maybe I'm not an Iceman, maybe what's wrong with me?
Yeah, they really they do that gag a lot. They really like the whole, hold on, let's put Christmas lights on Data's face and see how people react. They love that gag.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, at the time
it looked pretty badass.
Yeah, it's not as exciting these days, because like those little LEDs and stuff like that would have been really, really expensive at the time, and to have a effect, because if you actually look at the scene, we always see a straight on side shot of his face. He never turns his head, like his face towards the camera, because then you'd realize that like Brent Spiner had like a 2-inch prosthetic sticking off the side of his head to hide all the batteries and all the electronics and stuff that were required in those days to make something like that work. Nowadays, you do it with like a Adafruit kit or something like that would just programmable LED light kit number 7. Now in those days it was all like a lot of like discrete components and stuff doing that. So crazy. It would probably be huge.
Yeah. And, after this all happens in Act 5, Data has finally figured out how to cure this radiation poison that people have been feeling. He gives a little sample of it to the little girl, Gia, and, oh, well, it worked on your father. You need to drink this, and I'm going to go give this to the whole village. But they may not ever trust me because of the way I look, but I'm going to try to do it. And Gia's like, let me help you. And he's like, no. You stay here. I'll take care of this. So he's kind of like the Phantom of the Opera with this bucket. He's just like wandering through not like hunchbacked almost, like, okay, let's try to blend in. And he's like, I can't go to the river because that's days away. I'm gonna have to drop this in the well in the center of town. So
because that's their only water source. So he's trying to find somewhere that he knows everybody's gonna get inoculated or whatever, right?
So Data pours in the cure. All the people show up and they're like, you're the one who made us sick and we're gonna have to take you out. So Scorin has this long spear or something, or a pole, shoves it through Data's back, Scorin gets electrified, and Data collapses to the ground with this pole going through his body. And then it kind of fades to Gia next to this, like, I guess it's a Barconian tombstone, and it has
which is the worst flavor of tombstone.
It's so true. And then
it's like there's a cat box tombstone pizza. This is one step worse.
So then you see Dr. Crusher and Riker dressed and cosmetically looking like Barconians say, hey, have you seen our friend? He's pale with yellow eyes. And Gia's like, oh yeah, his name is Jaden and this is his tombstone. And she's like, oh yeah, that's his tombstone there, and he didn't know his own name, so we called him Jaden. What was his real name? And it's like, oh, his name was Data. Like, oh, he was different and the villagers were scared of him. That's why they killed him. And even though he cured everybody of the sickness from the little metal fragments, and Riker's like, well, where are those metal fragments? Oh, we buried them in the woods. Thank God we buried them far enough away that they're not going to either A, kill local wildlife, or B, infect our crops, or we buried them deep enough to where they're going to get into the water supply. Good job, people. So Gia walks away, and they're like, oh, they try to be very cautious with it, but Crusher pulls out a data pad and is like, he's inside this entire thing. We can beam him up and no one will ever know. So they do, and they're back in sickbay, and Data's all online again, and Picard finally shows up for the first time and says, hey, do you
where have you been all episode?
I've been taking care of the whole medical supplies issue, like you do. So Picard's like, do you remember anything? And Data's like, well, he says something about he was recovering information off the probe, and then he got electrocuted by the probe, and it overloaded his positronic net, and then pretty much he had no memory of anything that happened from then on. He's like, well, my clothes show I've been through quite an experience. And Troy's like, well, I'm going to be your superior officer, so I'm going to go to the bridge for my first nightly thing. And Data's like, what happened while I was gone?
Yeah, it's like a dick move. Like he's like, well, what happened while I was out? And she was like, oh, I took the bridge officer thing, so now I'm your superior officer.
Have to call me
sir. Yeah. It was basically it was like the ending of Clue, where Michael McKean's like, I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife.
It was such the weirdest ending.
Yeah, it's very strange. Actually, though, it's spinning back a tiny bit, because it's Crusher and Riker go down to the planet to try to find out what happened to Data, and it's like, you couldn't just scan that from orbit, number one.
Oh yeah, so it's
they
could have found him easily.
Yeah. So what happened on the Enterprise that you would be like? I mean, because he's not wearing a whatever, like a comm badge. But yeah, it's like I think I could pick up like the one piece of technology on this entire planet with no technology. So here's how I think it went down. They're up on the bridge of the Enterprise, and Troi has just got her bridge commission. And so they're like, well, how are we going to find data? Maybe we should scan them. And Troy's like, no. You guys should just go down to the planet. You other two bridge officers should just go down to the planet. And they're like, well, are you sure? Because we can't just do that. No. Just go down to the planet. So this was all a ruse so that she could finally be the bridge officer while everybody else was gone.
Oh, I think so too.
It was like you guys should go to the mall so I can sit around in my underwear and watch Netflix. It was no. You guys should really go. No, I got this. I got it. Yeah. God. So, I love this episode.
Yeah, you were right. This is a very good Data episode. The B story's kind of whatever, but yeah, I really did appreciate this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could have been like a whole episode of nothing but Data on this planet trying to figure out this little mystery. But yeah, you're right. This is very much like Data as Frankenstein, where you've got this weird monster that it's kind of brought this illness to this backwards sort of planet, this medieval sort of planet. Gets befriended by this little girl. The villagers come out and destroy him, and yeah. So I absolutely can see that. But
this episode was actually nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Art Direction for a Series. Yeah.
Really?
What can you say? This is just a good episode. I really don't have anything else to say to that.
Oh yeah, no, I do like this because I think it's from this point forward we definitely start seeing Troi in her like duty uniform a lot more and such. So moving backwards, she's wearing I can't remember what Marina Sirtis calls it when she does interviews, but it's like suit? the purple nightmare or whatever it was, because I know that they were really hard on her and Jonathan Frakes about their weight in the series. So the move to the other uniform, or the wool regular old Starfleet uniform, kind of gave her a little respite from them. It's we could see like every little, did you have a Tic Tac for lunch? Because we can see it.
Oh boy. Do you want to know what we're going to be watching next?
Yeah, I'd love to know what we're going to be watching next.
An episode called Lower Decks.
I can't
remember. Junior officers speculate on the reasons for recent unusual actions taken by the command crew near the Cardassian border.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Oh wait. Oh no. This is the one where we get to see like Nursagawa like hanging out with some of her contemporaries. So it's like a B Squad episode.
Oh, okay. Because
that's right.
Season 7 needs B Squad episodes.
Yeah, I think that they were like, maybe if we built, this was like that last season of Scrubs.
Oh.
Where they were like, you know what people love about Scrubs? James Franco's brother.
Is that what people liked about Scrubs?
Yeah, I think it was that. I think that was it. It was like the first 8 seasons of Scrubs. They were like, if only James Franco's brother was on Scrubs. And we finally got it.
Boy. Any final words you want to say, Ron?
I think everybody should watch this episode. I think it's really good. I think it's kind of a very Star Trek-y episode. Like, it's a very next-gen-y kind of episode. The B story is weak, but that's just how it goes. It's, they spent so much money on the sets and everything else for the other stuff that it was probably a budgetary limitation to try to, to pad things out. But
no, Riker probably was like, you want me to play my trombone? That's gonna be that's gonna be where all the budget goes, because I don't play trombone for free.
Yeah, right. I actually, I think I saw a meme the other day that sets that up perfectly, where it's like Picard plays the flute of the people, because there's the Inner Light episode where he spends like in 20 minutes spends like an entire lifetime on that alien world and learns to play the flute, and they open up the probe and the flute's inside, and it's, this is about his spirituality, and it's about his embracing of other cultures, and just about him always like striving to better himself. And Data plays the violin because it requires like mathematical precision, but it's not just that, but it's about, there's such humanity in the way that music sounds, because it's it's kind of representative of Data's sort of quest to become more human and have emotion and things like that, that mirror the emotions you hear when you listen to violin music. And Riker plays the fucking trombone.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Ron. And we will see everybody next week.
See you next week.